Bears Nation podcast. We are back. It is Wednesday, August 10th, and we are remote today because the Lapka household is infused with COVID. So I did not desire to go there for obvious reasons. Because I don't need COVID a third time, because that would be not fun for me. So here we are, still doing the show. Still a lot to talk about. We have a game to preview. Granted, it's a preseason game, and it's going to suck, but still going to preview it. We got some roster stuff to talk about, unofficial depth chart. We have Roquan Smith stuff to talk about. But first of all, Mr. New Shoulders over there, how you feeling? How's it going, man? It's been a rough week for you. It's been a rough since the last time we talked. It's been a rough go.
It hasn't been good. I don't know what I did to deserve this, but this has been a week from hell. I tear my shoulder apart. And actually, I just found out today that it dislocated, and I just didn't even realize it. So it dislocated, popped back in, and then a day later, I test positive for COVID. And I'm like, oh my God, my life is in shambles. I'm feeling much better now. Even my shoulder feels better. I'll get surgery in a couple weeks, but it doesn't hurt that bad anymore. So we're trudging through, but this week it was tough. So hopefully some Bears football can make it feel better, but probably that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So let's just hope it doesn't get worse for us on Saturday.
Yeah, no, that is, God knows what's going to happen. The good thing is it's preseason, so expectations are very, very low. So that's the thing. But Kevin was still out there. Family Fest was still on here breaking things down for you over the last couple days. So shout out to him on the grind. If you look at his Instagram stories, it's very depressing. It's all like, oh God, what am I going to do without sports? It's very, very, very heartbroken 17-year-old-esque. It's very interesting.
Okay.
It's
let's relax. All right.
Speaking as the guy that posts the same songs on his Instagram story every week, so it's good though. But anyway, glad you're feeling all right. Glad you're feeling better. So let's start with Roquan Smith. Let's start with the trade demand, request, whatever you want to call it. Comes off the PUP list today. Yesterday or today? Comes off the PUP list. I think it was today. Activated. So now is subject to be fined for not practicing. And this is after he very publicly says, I want out. They're lowballing me. I don't feel respected. This sucks. I'm very emotional. And then Ryan Poles gets up at the mic, and you can hear how disappointed he is that this is public now after he very clearly, and one of the first things Ryan Poles said was, I like to do stuff in-house. I don't like doing this whole public charade. Roquan Smith says, all right, I'm going to make a public charade. And here we are. And it's very interesting. Ryan Poles, of course, had to do something. You couldn't just let Roquan Smith call the shots and say, all right, well, now I'm going to make you guys look like the bad guys. Had to do something. It was his only leverage, literally the only card he could play. Does it now. Now, some people are going to say, oh, well, if he practices and he's out there, then they must be getting closer. Sure, there's still, faith that maybe something can get done, and maybe, you still got a couple weeks. Is he going to play Saturday? No, of course not. Obviously, he's not going to go out there and risk injury while he's, trying to figure out this contract situation. What makes it so weird is he's his own agent. He's negotiating on his own, which also makes the whole trade request thing different too, because now you're Roquan Smith. Not only are you trying to negotiate your contract, if there's negotiations going on still, or I don't know if it's been broken off completely, but now you got to go out there and make phone calls. Hey, do you want me? Hey, are you willing to work with the Bears? Hey, are you willing to make this phone call? Usually, like Jimmy Garoppolo, for example. Jimmy Garoppolo goes to his agent, says, all right, I want this team, or this team. I don't want to go to this team. Start making phone calls. I'm just going to go chill now while you take care of that. Roquan Smith's got to do that all by himself now. While also, probably you would think taking phone calls or texts from Ryan Poles being like, what about this? What about that? Can we work on this? Can we make some leeway here? And he's doing all these things. Well, also now you got to decide, okay, do I want to practice or do I want to take these fines? What do my financial situations look like? It's a whole, Roquan Smith's got 8 different spinning plates in the air. I mean, it's just it's a whole situation. I mean, obviously, maybe that leans more towards him at some point being like, all right, screw it. Fine, I'm signing. I just want this done. I just want to go out there. I just want enough of this. This is crazy. I don't know. But, I mean, Kevin, I know this is the first time I'm talking about the Roquan Smith thing since it's all kind of happened. You've been on a couple of these lives already, but I mean, just your initial thoughts of Roquan Smith being activated off the PUP list today.
I've been looking forward to talking to with you because I don't know. It is very divisive. Like it seems to me like it's actually been a pretty polarizing topic. Like people are taking sides here, either their team Roquan or their team Poles. And there's been pretty heated debate about it. And look, them taking him off the pup list, I mean, they're just playing poker now. And I think they're going to come in here and I think they're going to find the money. I do. I think they're going to find the money to say, hey, this is how you want to run things. We gave you what we believe is a very fair offer. Okay. And Ryan Poles, he made it to go up in front of the media and say specifically that there were record-breaking aspects to that deal. And yeah, Roquan talks about the de-escalation clauses and the back-loaded aspects of it, and we don't know what that really means, what the details of that are. But the bottom line is, like, whatever it was, it certainly wasn't a disrespectful deal. All right, let's put it that way. I think there's people out there who believe, oh my God, Ryan Poles is disrespecting Roquan Smith with this deal, and he's not giving him.
Well, we don't know what it is.
We don't know what it is, but if there is if there are multiple record-breaking aspects to it, in no way is it possible for it to be disrespectful towards him. I just don't think it's possible. But look, they're playing poker now. So Ryan Poles is going to say, hey, you want to come out and like make me look like an ass in front of the public? Because really that's what the narrative has been. It's been Ryan Poles fucking sucks. He's not paying his players. He's having a terrible offseason. And he's going to say, you know what? Here, you're going to pay the price for it. And maybe he'll have to accept less money. And I think ultimately that is the end result of this. If they are going to go back and forth, always front office has the upper hand, right? Because they can choose where they want to pay the player or trade them. Like they hold all the power. But I think Roquan Smith wants to be a Chicago Bear. Like I really want that to be known. And in a lot of situations like this, the player does not, like, when a player requests a trade, 90% of the time, the player does not care if they actually get traded. Like they don't care if they would rather be on the team that they're currently on or the team that they get traded to. They don't care, right? But when I was at Family Fest, Roquan Smith was there, present the whole time, talking. He was coaching the guys hours after he put out this statement to Ian Rappaport that he wanted to be traded. Like guys who don't want to be with an organization, guys who want to be with an organization do that. Guys who don't want to be with an organization, they don't show up to their team's practice at the stadium for the first time. Like they just don't. But look, Ryan Poles has the power. In my opinion on it is this, Jake, and I want to hear what you think about it. Roquan Smith is a top 3 linebacker in the NFL, right? And we have talked so much about paying for value and making sure that you are getting value out of your players, not overpaying for guys, because that's what ran Ryan Pace out of the building. That's the reason he's not here anymore, right? He threw too much money at guys who weren't deserving of it. He threw $10 million at Andy Dalton. He threw money at Nick Foles. He threw money at Jimmy Graham. And he gave extensions to guys like Eddie Jackson, who at the time was deserving of it. Now it didn't pay out. Tariq Cohen wasn't deserving of that, right? Roquan Smith is deserving of top 3 linebacker money. I don't know if he's deserving of best linebacker in the league money at year 1 of a rebuild. And that's what matters is you are not in a situation where making that decision to pay Roquan Smith the record-breaking linebacker deal is worth it for you. You're just not in a situation to do that. So I don't know if you have also seen it as polarizing, if you are choosing a side, but what's your thoughts on, who is at fault here, I guess you could say, and what the outcome of it is?
So I'll answer your first question. I don't think he shouldn't be paid like Shaq Leonard. Like that's just like Shaq Leonard is a turnover machine. Yes, he's like Roquan Smith's a very, very good linebacker, but Shaq Leonard is a turnover. Like I think I saw somebody tweet like Shaq Leonard has 17 forced fumbles or something, or turnovers forced over the last year, or 2 years. Roquan Smith has 1. Like that's a huge discrepancy. I love Roquan Smith. I think he's one of those guys that you can build around over this next 3 years as this rebuild happens. Granted that he's here and granted that he gets money. I actually kind of disagree that now is when you give him that big record-setting deal while you're going through this, and you're not going to be paying anybody. Look at that. Like we've talked on the show multiple times over what your cap situation. Pay that will have the space, the 29, 28, whatever, kind of on the back end. You don't have to pay him as much for those prime years, but he still is going to be like a key contributor. Then when you're starting to bring those supplemental guys in and, around the stars, then it kind of works out. The math starts to math a little bit, but whatever. What was the second question? I already forgot.
What do you think the outcome of it is? If you were to make a prediction, what's the outcome of this situation?
Man.
Does he get traded? Does he not get traded? Does he, hold out for weeks during the regular season? Do they not get a deal done by then? And what would make you the happiest as a fan?
I mean, if you happiest would be you hand him a 5-year deal, because because then that gets him here for the rebuild years. I mean, let's say that you're fully rebuilt. Let's say this is year 1, and then next year, and then the third year you go like 9-8 or whatever. You start to get back into that winning column. And then that fourth year is when you expect to be like a playoff team. God, that is so depressing to lay out. But kind of the reality we're living in. The realistic timeline as well. I'm sure Kevin Lapka will tell you an ideal scenario. The Bears are a playoff team by next year. But
yes, they are.
All that being said, yeah, I mean, the happiest obviously is that they signed him to an extension. He's somebody you need. You're not, like we've talked about time and time again, that this roster is not flush with talent. You need as many talented, especially blue chip guys, as you can take. You can't afford to have these guys walk out the door like that. Like, that's why you hope Eddie Jackson shows a flash in the pan in the revamped Matt Eberflus defense. That's why you hope you hit on something with Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. That's why you hope Jalen Johnson takes that next step. That's why you hope Braxton Jones is a hidden gem in the late rounds of the NFL draft that just happened, because you need these guys. You don't have a lot of them, so it's really bad. And so that kind of leads me. This is actually a nice segue, because I mentioned to you a couple hours ago in a text that I had a game kind of exercise that I wanted to play through. And let me pull up that depth chart was tweeted by Fishbane, right? The unofficial depth chart that you sent me.
Yeah, it was Fishbane that released the depth chart.
So I kind of want to go through this, because this is going to give us an opportunity. Talking about this, how many of these guys on this depth chart are realistically going to be on this team next year? And let's just do starters. Like, let's not, we don't have to go through
next year. Oh, okay.
Like, because this tells me, because if they do trade him, like, that shows that Ryan Poles like, I'm not going to play these games. I'm just going to, all right, we'll cut bait. We'll get out of here. We tried, and now you're going to play these games. All right, you're done. So I want to go through this. And we'll go through this. So let's just go through.
That's very valid.
So this is what I want to do. What is this? Stupid. Okay. So guys that are going to be here, and we'll just go down the list. And guys who will 100%, with 100% certainty, that they're going to be here next year. Like, no doubt, 100%, they will be on this team next year. And so we'll start. I have pulled up Darnell Mooney. I think, yeah, probably. He's one.
What do you mean you think, yeah? Holy shit, yes.
Braxton Jones. I think, yes. And this is as of today, as of this moment right now. We haven't seen any games, but just all going to be based off what we've seen, what we've heard, blah, 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 blah. So Darnell Mooney, Braxton Jones, I think yes. Okay. Cody Whitehair, I'd like to say yes, but as he gets older and the money you owe him, I wouldn't say that's this is 100% guarantee they will be here next year. I don't think Cody Whitehair is one of those guys. Like, I think he might be
guaranteed either.
I think he might be one of those guys that might be either cap cut or something. Lucas Patrick, I don't think it's 100% that he's here. He's only on a 2-year deal. If he stinks, they'll say, all right, see you later. Or if he remains hurt.
He's 100%.
He's not 100% for me. Michael Schofield, obviously not. Riley Reef, obviously not. Cole Kmet, I don't think he's 100%. I think this is a proven year for him.
Oh, stop it.
If he can't play, 100%. I'm a Cole Kmet guy. If he has another pedestrian year, they might be like, all right, we're going to draft your replacement. See you later. This is year 3. This is going to be year 3 for Cole Kmet. Like, they might say, okay, you had 3 years. Year 1, you're not somebody we drafted. See you later. It's 3 years. You're still just putting up these extremely pedestrian numbers. See you later. We'll just draft your replacement. I don't think Cole Kmet's 100% to stay on this roster next year.
That is shocking. I think he is. And because he's on a rookie deal for 2 more years, and I think he's going to have a 700-yard season, and you're not going to be in a position to try to just find your replacement, especially knowing the timeline for tight ends, especially young ones in the NFL. Sometimes it takes a couple of years. And I think Cole Kmet, I think what they can do is find another guy in free agency. I don't know what the free agent tight end list looks like, and kind of find a guy who's stronger. If Cole Kmet can't be a number 1 who's top 12 in the league, I think he could be top 10 in yardage this year, honestly, or maybe top 12 in yardage, but they could go with sort of a 2 tight end, done that recently to success. But, I don't think you're gonna want to have you have a lot of needs on this team. You don't want to create one by cutting Cole Kmet after this year. So I think for that reason, just given the place that you're in, you're gonna keep him 100% next year. So I'll say.
So also we should talk about like the reason that some of these guys for me are not going to be 100% is the fact that the Roquan Smith trade thing is even being entertained, and the fact that it's been this long without an extension, and that's kind of dragging out because it says to me that Ryan Poles is going to be firm in his beliefs, firm in his valuations of these guys, and he's not going to budge. And then it's going to go from there. Like he'd rather be one of those guys, like because again we've seen it. Like I didn't draft these guys. I'm going to let them walk and get my guys in because this is my child, this is my baby. So why would I leave that in the hands of Ryan Pace guys, of guys that I didn't draft? So this Roquan, especially if he trades Roquan Smith, I think that means that anybody is on the table. That anybody can, if you're not performing up to standard or up to par, you're out. So granted, Roquan Smith is still on the team, and extension can still get done. But the fact that it's taken this long will be like is kind of gives me some doubt that some of these guys are 100%. Okay, continuing. David Montgomery. I do not think it's 100% that David Montgomery's on this team next year. For a couple factors. No. Running back, not same thing, not a Poles guy. Running backs, we know how much, and it seems like Khalil Herbert, so hand in hand, I think Khalil Herbert's 100% for next year. 30-year of a rookie contract has shown he can play a little bit, and running backs are a dime a dozen, but also bring some value on special teams. So you're not only tied to him as a running back. Even if you don't like him as a running back that much, keep him as a cheap special teamser because he performs well on that side of the ball. So I think Dave Montgomery, not 100%. Khalil Herbert, 100%.
Agreed. Look, we were just talking about value and talking about, how Ryan Poles is being very cautious and smart with his money. Being smart with your money is not paying a running back, especially a guy who's not top 5 in the league, to a big time extension that he thinks he'll deserve. And unfortunately, it's not David Montgomery's fault. It's not a knock on him. We're not saying that David Montgomery's not, a bad, he's not a good football player. We're not saying he's a bad football player. It's just he's replaceable. Like unless
easily replaceable at that.
I don't know. Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. There's probably a few others I'm missing, but out of the core 7 or 8 guys, right? Most are replaceable. You know what I mean? I think Ezekiel Elliott's replaceable with Tony Pollard, and Tony Pollard might be better, right? So Dave Montgomery's a great running back, and I hope he balls out this year. But second contracts for running backs at the same team don't come often, and they shouldn't in this situation that the Bears are in. And given what Ryan Poles has done, and you're basing all this off of his moves this offseason and in this situation with Roquan. He's not just going to throw money at you if you're asking for it. He's not going to give you the blank check and tell you to write your number and he'll sign off on it. That's just not how it's going to work with this regime. And look, there's going to be people who don't think that's a good thing. Why aren't you locking down your young players? Well, you got it. This is exactly the hypocrisy in that statement is so blatant because that's exactly why everyone hated Ryan Pace. It's exactly why everyone hated him. Was you're throwing too much money at guys who didn't deserve it. And it made everyone happy because
it maybe not even deserved it, but hadn't earned it yet. After Eddie Jackson, year 1, Tariq Cohen, year 1, just tried to get and if Ryan Pace, if those had hit the way that we thought we thought they were home runs at the time, if they had ended up being that or being successful, down the road, then we would have been A, Ryan Pace would still be here, and B, we'd be singing his praises. It's just he tried to get ahead of it and try to get those value deals before these guys continued to rise and their prices got even bigger, and it just didn't work out. So now you got a guy who's taking a more conservative approach.
Yeah, and look, it's the right. I think it's hard because fans of this team, especially, fans of any team, but fans of this team, especially, given the pain that we felt for pretty much our whole life, they want instant results, and they don't like us being shamed on Instagram and on Twitter and all that for our lackluster roster and our below average roster and stuff. But you have to kind of come to this acceptance that given the position that the Bears are in, I think they could sign a wide receiver like Will Fuller right now. I'm not saying that's not possible, and they've said that they're going to be active, and we saw it with Riley Reif and Michael Schofield. But if you go back to this previous offseason, there's no way in hell they were ever going to trade for Tyreek Hill or pay Devontae Adams the $30 million, right? You have to understand this is the situation we're in. And sure, it doesn't look glamorous on paper, but it looked glamorous on paper under Ryan Pace. And look where that got you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn from what happened in the past. And if you believe you have a good coaching staff, guess what? You don't need to throw millions of dollars at people. I said this last night. How much money did the Patriots throw out the years that they won the Super Bowls? How many big time free agents were the Patriots signing? They were getting guys on cheap, under $10 million deals, using the coaching to their advantage to develop those players and make them worth more than what their contract said they were. That is how you win. And that's just like, it's hard for people to accept that, because it means, oh, we're not getting these big time players right away. It'll come. The Bears have $130 million, or what do they have next year? 150?
A lot, yeah.
It's
a silly number. It's a silly number.
Well, let's go back down the list. Let's finish out this.
All right.
This
well,
list.
Okay. So this will kind of expedite this process. I think that there's only 2 other guys on this list that are 100% locks to be on this team next year. 2 other guys.
Okay. Wait. You kind of cut out.
Right.
What did you say? You want me to guess?
I think there's only 2 other guys that are on this, that on the offensive side. Only 2 other offensive players that I think are 100% absolute locks to be on the roster next year. One is Larry Borum. The other is Velus Jones Jr. I think those are the only 2.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that
are 100%.
I agree.
So you agree?
I agree.
Okay, so those are the last 2.
Well, look,
that I think on the offense.
You said Khalil Herbert. Is Byron Pringle on a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal?
Doesn't matter. Even if he was on a 2-year deal, it wouldn't matter. Not a lock.
I think he's a lock if he's on a 2-year deal.
He might stink. Or get arrested again.
Even if he does stink, they're gonna stop it. He's on a 1-year $4.1 million deal. I forgot about that. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Unfortunately, I think you might be right. So,
okay, so you agree with me then that Justin Fields is not 100% a lock to be on the roster next year?
Oh, fuck. Did I okay. I thought we were excluding Justin. Okay.
Nope.
You know what? Stop it. Oh my, I'm getting off the show right now. I'm walking off. I'm gone.
This is not a bit. I've said this before. I said this a couple weeks ago.
We're not doing this.
I said the Roquan Smith whole situation 100% tells me that Ryan Poles will stick to what his eyeballs tell him and to his brain and what he feels about these guys, and he's not just going to hand them out because they're star level players or perceived as star level players. It is not now. Granted, I think that is like 85-90% chance that Justin Fields is still on this roster next year. But if he stinks this year, and if the Bears tank, if the Bears go winless, and Justin Fields stinks this year, or doesn't show,
if the Bears go winless, Jake, they're not going winless. Come on.
If the Bears go winless and Justin Fields does not show the progression that we're hoping from him, if he keeps throwing these wobbly passes into the regular season, the Bears have a top 2 pick, they will take Stroud or Young. They'll do it.
Nope.
They 100% will.
Nope.
Poles will sit there if they have a top 2 pick and Justin Fields is just average. Ryan Poles will look at him and say, I didn't draft this guy. Okay, he's average, but I don't think he can win a playoff game. That is a very real possibility. We have heard rumblings about it. We've heard whispers about it.
We haven't heard shit about it. Who said?
You've heard people talk, like, nobody has actually, like, there's been, like, Rappaport hasn't said, like, oh, the Ryan Poles, but remember when these guys first came to power, like, well, like, they didn't make, like, these over grand statements about Justin Fields. Yeah, okay, now we're seeing, like, these random tweets over the last couple of days that Justin Fields is blowing the coaching staff away. But if Justin Fields is, like, average to below average, and the Bears bottom out, and they have a top 3 pick, I 1,000% Ryan Poles will say, all right, I'm getting a new guy on a rookie deal. We're starting from scratch. I'm taking Stroud or Young.
I can't deal with it. I can't. This is worse.
Like,
this is worse than Foles over Trubisky. This is worse than that. This is worse than your take.
In hindsight, that wasn't bad. In hindsight, that wasn't bad.
It's okay. It may
like I still believe Justin Fields can be good. I still think that Justin Fields will be good, and I still think there's a 93% chance that he's on the roster next year, but it is not 100% locked in. There, like Kevin, there's an avenue where Justin Fields is not as good as we think he is, and the Bears are in a position to take one of these star quarterbacks, and Ryan Poles says, I didn't draft this guy. We're starting over anyway. We're starting from scratch. I'm taking one of these guys. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not saying it's I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not even saying it's likely. I'm not even saying it's probable. But I'm saying that there's an avenue where that happens. There is a reality where that happens. It is a thing. It happens all the time in the NFL. It happens all the time. Not the specific situation, but it happens in the NFL where a regime change happens, and these guys, they say, okay, this is not my baby. I'm going to curate this baby exactly how I perceive it to happen and how I want it to happen. All right, Ryan Poles, maybe he gets the jump on, okay, we have Jaquan Brisker. Okay, we have Kyler Gordon. Okay, we have Braxton Jones. Okay, we have a couple things here. Quarterback needs to happen. We're going to go in next year with a rookie. I'm not saying, again, before the comments come after me, before the mentions come after me,
get after him,
there is an avenue where Justin Fields does not impress this regime, and they say, okay, we're starting from scratch anyway. This is a rebuild. We're in a position to take Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. We're just going to do it because we evaluate these. This is how we're evaluating these guys. We're not evaluating them on the fly, which they're doing with Justin Fields right now, and hoping it comes together. We all hope it comes together. I love Justin Fields. I think he's going to be good, but we need this Roquan. My point is that this Roquan Smith situation, especially if he is traded, should tell us that nobody is off the table.
But I think you're misinterpreting the Roquan situation, and that's the problem. I think it's not that he doesn't think Roquan is good or that he doesn't want him on the team. I think the problem is with what you're doing with your money right now, and whether you think he's worthy of it. It doesn't mean that he doesn't think Roquan is good. I think you're right to an extent that there will be guys who are cut that are surprising. He's going to be on the team for a while. Ryan Poles, you're right in certain aspects when you mean he wants his own guys, right? And he wants to do things this way. I think that's 100% true. But Justin Fields is the core of everything, right? Nucleus of what you are going to do for the rest of his tenure, for the rest of Ryan Poles' tenure. And look, it's almost easy for Ryan Poles. Yes. What do you mean?
Ryan Poles can easily say, Ryan Poles is not, and that's also part of the thing too. Ryan Poles has no loyalty to Justin Fields. So if he does
now, because he's the damn quarterback of the team, he's got loyalty now.
He inherited him. What was he supposed to do? What's he supposed to do? Say, okay, we'll roll a Trevor Siemian this year. You might as well roll the dice with Fields if you're Poles. But if he doesn't impress you, then you move on.
That's what bad GMs do. Bad GMs, they already have it in the back of their mind that they might not like this guy. That would be telling, if you really think that's true, if you really think there's not a 100% chance that Justin Fields is going to be on the team next year, that means in the back of Ryan Poles' mind, he's already thinking in the future past Justin Fields. That's a terrible outlook. That's a horrible thing. That's the worst possible thing a GM can do, is in the back of their mind be thinking, you know what, if this doesn't work out, we gotta start planning for next options. We gotta
1,000%. I'm not saying that they're doing that right now.
You can't.
I'm not saying that the ship has sailed on Justin Fields. They're evaluating him right now, practice to practice. They're in there trying to figure out what they have in him. I'm just saying that a year from now, things could be different. They're going to evaluate him all this year. Right now, I'm not saying that he's in the back of his mind right now planning for the future. Not what I'm saying at all, for sure. Of course he's keeping him here because you have to evaluate him. He's still a young quarterback. He still showed flashes in his first year when you weren't there. So of course you're going to go into this year and be like, all right, let's see what the kid has. I'm simply floating the notion that they didn't draft I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. But I'm saying that it is possible a year from now, things have changed. That's why it's not 100%. They're day to day, minute to minute, throw to throw. Ryan Poles is evaluating Justin Fields because he's doing with all of his players. Doing with Tevin Jenkins, trying to figure out if he can trade him or keep him. He's doing it with Roquan Smith. He's doing it with everybody. He's doing it with all these guys on 1-year contracts. Okay, because that's what the NFL is. It's a business. You have to in some way think about the future. Like Byron Pringle's out there on a 1-year deal. Ryan Poles is watching him snap to snap, being like, okay, is there a possibility that we bring this guy back next year? And what you see, it's a formula, and everything goes into that formula from play to play. So, I mean, because that's just what you have to do as a GM. Of course, you have to plan for the future at least a little bit. Justin Fields might be the last part of that equation because there's so many other holes on this
part of the equation. He's the
I'm saying of things that like you have to evaluate and pieces that you need to put together. Like offensive line, receiver, obviously like 1-2, you got to figure out what you have there. Like Justin Fields is the last part in that sense because you're like, okay, we have this guy. We think that he's going to be good. We believe in him. But I'm saying that could change. This Roquan Smith situation proves to us that Ryan Poles is willing to drag things out and stick to his guns. And if he doesn't believe in someone as much as they believe in themselves or as the fans do, then he might explore other avenues. Might being the key word. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's a likely possibility. I'm not even saying it's probable. But it is something that as time has gone on and the way that Ryan Poles has acted since being hired has made me think that if push comes to shove, he won't be afraid to explore those other avenues.
The bottom line is, so there's two things. Number one, you set yourself back so much. You set yourself. If Justin Fields is like, so here's the first thing that's the problem that you are stating here. You're now setting unrealistic expectations for Justin now. Like, Justin Fields just needs to be better than he was last year. He needs to have shown growth and shown improvement. And then in that year 3 is when he can be the MVP superstar type guy. Look, I think he's going to reach that status this year. I don't think he's going to be an MVP. I think you're going to see this year that this guy has it and he will be the quarterback of the Bears for the rest of his career. That is where I'm at with Justin Fields. And everyone knows my opinion on him. Everyone knows my takes on him. He will prove that this year. So I don't even think we have to worry about any of what you're talking about. Like, I don't even have to think about worrying about that. But even if what you say is a reality and it's true, you set yourself back so many years if you have to restart the whole process and draft a new guy. And then, oh my God, is this guy even really what you want? Is this guy correct? You are in the perfect situation of a rebuild right now, in my opinion. You have been placed into the perfect spot, right? Because the problem that a lot of teams have,
perfect spot.
You are in a perfect spot. The Chicago Bears are in a perfect spot. Why? Because they have the quarterback of the future who's capable of leading them to a Super Bowl in 2 years. Next year, they're going to have $180 million, 130, whatever it is, 100 plus something, the most in the league that they can spend and start to bring in free agents and start to make this team actually championship contender. They have young players on both sides of the ball who are going to be. What do you mean? Darnell Mooney is going to be the wide receiver 1 of the Chicago Bears and a top 15 receiver in the league for the rest of his career. On the
that's his ceiling.
And the defensive side of the ball.
Okay, that's one person on the offensive side. You still need an offensive line and a tight end and other receivers. I think it's a leap to say this is a perfect situation. You still have a lot of talent that you need to find.
It's a good situation for the Bears. It's obviously never going to be a perfect situation at the beginning of the rebuild. That's why it's called a rebuild. So if you are evaluating rebuilding teams, yes, the Bears are in a perfect situation. You want to know who's not in a perfect situation? The Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's not because of Trevor Lawrence. It's because they spent a ton of fucking money on guys this year that weren't worth it. And that's why I'm glad Ryan Poles didn't go out there and give Christian Kirk a 4-year, $80 million contract. That's how you get yourself into not a perfect situation. The Bears have full control and they have the most important thing locked down, right? They have the most important thing locked down, and that's a quarterback, right? The Bears were constantly trying to retool the past 5 years, retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it for those periods of time, with the main issue not being, a top 10 quarterback. And it's impossible. You're never going to do it, right? The Titans are never going to be able to do it with Ryan Tannehill. It's just not going to happen. Like, they're going to constantly be rebuilding and retooling until they get a different guy. The Bears have everything in front of them. The whole future of the Chicago Bears franchise is right there in front of them. They have full control, and it sounds that they can. It seems, I said sounds because someone put in chat, and it seems like they have everything in front of them and they can do whatever they want and they can be a contending team next year because they have a quarterback who can do it. And you set yourself back a million years and you restart the whole process and you throw a whole wrench in your plan if you decide to move on from Justin Fields for whatever reason. It's not going to happen. And this conversation, we're going to be acting foolish for having it in, a couple months when he's lighting up the league, when he's playing well. I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to light up the league, but Justin Fields is going to be good enough that you are going to know that he has what it takes to bring this team a championship in a couple years. Again, not exactly this year, but he will be that guy. I understand what you mean. I understand where your thoughts are coming from. And you're using these examples like Roquan Smith and Tevin Jenkins to drive your thinking. I understand that, right? And I think it's right for a majority of the roster, if not the whole roster, outside of the quarterback position. You have to right now put all of your chips into one bucket, into the Justin Fields bucket. You have to go all in on Justin Fields, right? And look, if you go all in on Justin Fields and in 4 and 5 years it doesn't pay off, guess what? You failed. You're done. You're fired. But you are making a major mistake if you are not 100% on Justin Fields and understanding that and look, it's not to say that, I don't know if you think this either, that Ryan Poles doesn't really like him. Like the things that he has said outside of that first press conference, which was weird. And we talked about it, how he, there wasn't a lot of name dropping. There wasn't a lot of praise. Outside of that, he said he fucking loves Justin. He said he loves the way he's progressing. And then you see those reports. I think you mentioned it that, scouts are saying he's having the greatest jump from year 1 to 2 that people have ever seen. And again, I said last night, I don't know how to quantify that, but it's there. Like, it's not like, oh my God, he's struggling, right? Like we've heard that Zach Wilson is struggling. We've heard that other guys are struggling. Like Justin Fields is playing well in camp. He's got every single tool and attribute. He's a hard fucking worker. The Bears are going to go all in on him. And it may not seem reflective of that given some of the moves that they've made, but it's all part of this ongoing process. Again, you have to be smart with your money. Just because they didn't throw $80 million at Christian Kirk doesn't mean they don't like Justin Fields. It's part of the process. They're in a rebuild. And in 3 weeks, we're going to be people like you are going to be eating their damn words because Justin Fields has what it takes and he will lead the Bears to a Super Bowl in 5 years. There's zero, Jake, zero, fuck zero, -4 million% chance that they move on from Justin Fields after this year. Negative.
Again, there's no words for me to eat. I'm simply proposing an alternative.
You should eat your words for proposing it. It's ridiculous to propose it, Jake.
I'm just saying that we need to be open to more pain as Bears fans because that's what we've been conditioned to expect. The rest of this depth chart, just real quick, because we've spent far too much time on Justin Fields' discourse. I really think there's only a couple guys on the rest of this depth chart that are 100% locks to make this roster next year. Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, Cairo Santos. I think that's it. Those are the only other 4.
I think Nicholas.
Well, he's on a 1-year deal. That's the only reason I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having trouble remembering who's not on a 1-year deal. But I think all the guys on the defensive side of the ball who aren't on a 1-year deal are probably likely. Like if Al-Qadim Muhammad is on 2 years, I would say Travis Gibson is definitely going to make the roster next year, 100%.
Well, like you would 100% like be confident that these guys are 100% mortal locks.
Travis Gibson, yes. I agree with you with Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon. I would also say Eddie Jackson is still 100%.
I wouldn't.
That's just given what I think we're going to see from him. I think he's going to return closer to that 2018 form, and if that comes true.
Okay, so that's more of your projection of what he can.
Sure,
you think he'll be working? Okay, I'll accept that.
And of course, Trent Gill.
Yeah, fair. I'll allow that just because he's a rookie punter. Okay. All right, let's preview this game. Let's start actually 45 minutes in. Let's talk about this game.
Yeah, let's talk about the title of the episode, 45 minutes.
All right. So Matt Eberflus said that he's going to let the starters go out there. Justin Fields is going to be out there. We're going to get an idea of what the offensive line is going to look like. Makes sense. Matt Eberflus is like an effort guy. He wants to go out there and show what this team is going to be, and they're high effort, high intensity. We can't expect. Is expecting a quarter too much?
Yeah,
I guess it depends on how I guess it depends on how the game plays out too. We said this he definitely won't play the whole game. 1,000% no. You can't risk that.
No, he'll play.
What you want? You wanted to tear up.
Yeah, no.
Going to point of that. He can practice. So okay. So we'll start with the Justin Fields question. I mean, does he get 2 series? Like, I mean, again, game flow dictates probably a lot of this, but is it?
Yeah,
I mean, it's probably
he gets
depend.
he gets here. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I think you're breaking up a
No,
little
you're
bit. I
good.
thought you were done. He gets a series if they score a touchdown. If they go down the field, as they should, if they go down the field, they score a touchdown, they're aggressive, they go no huddle, they score a touchdown, he's done, right? I think if he does a series, maybe they run the ball twice and then pass it once and they go 3-and-out or something, or they kind of stall out early in the drive, then I think he plays 2 series. No, I don't think it's in any scenario, I don't think it's more than 2, right? But I do think it's important that they are playing, right? Let's talk about that, because if you remember last year, there was a whole lot of discourse about not playing the starters in the preseason. And if I remember correctly, sorry, my memory's been fuzzy today. They didn't play any of the starters at all in the preseason, right?
Last year?
I want to say
I
they didn't play
don't
anyone.
think so. Yeah,
And I
I
think
don't
that
think
was the
so.
like we talked about it, and someone in the chat can help us out here and let us know if that was 100% true or not. But I do remember talking on the show about like, oh my God, why aren't those guys out there, building connections, playing? I remember Justin played last year, obviously, because he was the backup at the time. But look, I think it's important that they are playing, right? And I don't know if anyone is in a disagreement with that because of potential injury. Look, no. Given the state that the Bears are in, first of all, they have to start the offensive line because they don't even know yet what the starting 5 is going to be. We have an idea,
Right.
and on Tuesday, it was Braxton Jones. I can't even remember what it was. It was Braxton Jones, Schofield, Whitehair, Mustapher, and on the other side was, I want to say it was Reef. Don't quote me on that, but it was.
He's
Look,
been ramping up. I don't know if he's been 100% in. Well,
Reef?
here's the
No,
problem.
he was there. He was there. He was full.
Here's the problem from the jump is your starting center's out hurt like that.
Yeah, well,
And
that's not a problem though. Like, you mean it's a problem as far as figuring out what the line is going to be?
right, and I mean with this line with so many new moving parts and guys that kind of got to gel, the center's the most important part, and you're not even
That's
you
fair.
might not have him to start the season, and then like now you're just gonna
No,
throw
you
him in there, and
will.
you hope, but I
You
mean
will.
this is the Bears we're talking about. Worst always comes to worst. You have to expect the worst case scenario, but
Mhm.
I mean, really, we're gonna like. I get it. Sam Mustapher is your next best option, but man, like it really would have been nice to go in there with a fully to go Reef, Whitehair, Patrick, Schofield, and Borum. That would have been really awesome. Unfortunately, it's not. It's going to happen, and I'm sure Eberflus is going to switch them
Braxton
out and
Jones.
rotate them, and we might not see the official starting guys, like the official Patrick, everybody in their exact positions until week 1. We might not see it all this preseason, just because
Yeah,
Reef and Schofield got to catch up. They got to ramp up. Patrick has to come back from injury. You still want to figure out what you have in Borum, Jones, and Jenkins. Like we might not see the official week 1 starting lineup on offensive line until week 1.
yeah, it's unfortunate that those guys won't get reps together. But we were on I was on a Twitter Spaces the other day, and we were talking about the offensive line with I don't remember who was in it. Geez, I really do have a COVID brain right now. I don't remember shit. I don't remember anything. What the hell is going on out here? I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast. God damn it. But like I almost feel like this is a good problem to have for the Bears. Like the fact that we don't know who the starting 5 is a good problem to have. Why? Because it doesn't mean that what it means is you have multiple players who could be on the first team, and you just don't know which ones are the best of those. So you have a bunch of guys right now who are all capable of being starting offensive linemen for your team. You're just trying to figure out who's the best of the best. Like that's what you're working with here. And if I were to tell you in March of this time, we were just fishing for guys that we thought could play. We were fishing for guys that we thought could even just possibly start for us and not be terrible, right? So now you have multiple players, and the emergence of Braxton Jones has been huge for this. Like that can, and of course the signings has really made the whole difference. But you are really, really flexible, and you have a lot of guys where even if someone goes down, you can just slot another guy who could be just as capable. Like Tevin Jenkins very well could be just as capable to be a starting right tackle as Riley Reef, right? Or
Sure.
like He really could. Like, we don't know what was going on with his injury, but he could still be a very good player. Like, that is 100% facts. Okay. So this is a good problem to have for the Bears. It is unfortunate from a gelling standpoint, from a meshing standpoint, from a just a pure comfortability connection standpoint for them not to all play together in a game on the line. But nonetheless, to have 5 guys and to have everyone out there, like, you'll be able to tell, like, if one guy is struggling. You'll be able to tell single-handedly if, Braxton Jones has looked great in practice. He's not really holding his own in the preseason game, right? Like, as a unit, there's a story, but there's also a storyline for each individual guy on that line. That's what they're going to try to figure out. So I know we talked about Justin Fields. I think the offensive linemen are going to get a lot more time. Like, a starting guy like Riley Reid for Braxton Jones could play a whole quarter, if not more, just because they are still in the midst of figuring that out. And you're running out of days of camp. This is your time to figure it out. You only got 3 preseason games instead of 4. You got to make use of that time figuring out who's the best of the best there on that line.
Something you said there, I do completely. I think some of these offensive linemen you're going to see. Like, I think you're going to see a ton of Braxton Jones, who apparently there were a bunch of tweets today that were saying that he was like manhandling Robert Quinn all day. So that's huge. But I think you're going to see a lot of him. I honestly think you're going to see a lot of Tevin Jenkins as long as he plays. Like, as long as he's active. I think you're going to see a lot of Tevin Jenkins because he's like, after he missed that week and there were, the trade rumors and that the Bears were trying to ship him off. Even if they are trying to trade him, you got, like, even these teams that are maybe interested in him got to see what you have in him at some point. So the Bears are going to be like, all right, go out and play, either proving yourself to us or to someone else, but you're going to play. I think you're going to see a lot of him. I honestly think you're going to see a lot of Larry Borum too in year 2. They're trying to figure. You might see him at right tackle and right guard and left tackle. They're trying to figure out. I think they know they have something in him. I think it's just a matter of where he fits on the line.
He's not playing guard. He might switch tackle sides, but he's not playing guard. No, I mean, so at Family Fest, and I noted this. I don't know how significant it is when they're doing these individual drills, but the whole time during individual drills, it was Jenkins and Borum with the rest of the tackles. Like, there was no oh, Jenkins is going to work with the tackles or Borum's going to work with the tackles for a little bit, then go run over and work with the guards. Like, they were all with the tackles. And I thought, like, again, I don't know if that's just like standard. Like, one day you're just going to work with the tackles and then another day you can work with the guards. But I think, given what we've heard, like, I don't think they're going to be messing around with either of those guys at guard. But, like, again, like, it's weird because, like, if you find out that those guys are really good and then Riley Reif and Michael Schofield are also pretty good, like, it's just, I don't know. Like, you could build a really good offensive line if Braxton Jones is really good and you lock down the tackles, but you still want Jenkins or Borum in there. And the only place for them in there is like right guard or something, then yeah, like, maybe you do that. I wouldn't rule that out. But yeah, those guys can get a lot of time. I think the rest of, like, the only wide receiver who's gonna play like the same amount is Justin, which I played out that drive series scenario. I think is Darnell Mooney. I mean, the wide receivers, like, it's the same way, because think about it this way, Jake. Like, this is getting really interesting for the wide receivers with some of the guys that are out, because now there's a lot of opportunities. And Equanimeous St. Brown is a lock to make the team because of the contract. Darnell Mooney's a lock to make the team.
Well, apparently him and Justin Fields, like, love each other too. Like, I feel like every day, like in practice, like, oh, Justin Fields targeting Equanimeous St. Brown again. Oh, they connect for a longer, or even if it's something that they don't connect on. But it seems like he's targeting him a ton in practice.
Yeah, there was a couple targets on Saturday. There was a couple receptions actually. Every time he targeted Equanimeous St. Brown, which wasn't a ton because they didn't do a ton of team drills. He caught him, so he's definitely going after him. And I think Equanimeous has really, really risen up on the depth chart, and it's evident because he's actually the second listed wide receiver on the depth chart from Fishbane. It was Darnell Mooney 1, and then it was Equanimeous St. Brown 2, and then I think behind Darnell, and then Velus Jones, and then Byron Pringle. Look. Let's do the top 3 players to watch on Saturday, and I can go first so I can get you a little bit of time to think about this. Number 1, I really want to see Velus Jones Jr. play. I don't know if he's going to play. He's been held out of practice. He wasn't at Family Fest on Tuesday. I'm not sure if he practiced today. So I imagine whatever's going on with him is nothing serious. They're just kind of taking it safe with him at his old age, right? He's an old guy, right? The guy's 25. Old man Velus Jones Jr. has to get his rest. Another guy that I'm going to be watching, friend of the program, Daz Newsome.
Daz Newsome.
All right. Daz Newsome looked really good on Tuesday at Family Fest. He was my, one of the top players that I saw that I pointed out in our post-game show, or post-practice show. And now with N'Keal Harry out, and Jake, I'll pose this to you. I think if N'Keal Harry doesn't play a single game in preseason, which he's not going to with the high ankle sprain, they could cut him. I honestly believe they could cut him.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that.
Look, 7th round pick. We saw Ryan Poles bring those out of thin air during the draft. Let's trade down 2 spots in the 6th round and get an extra 7th, right? Like you're not losing a lot. Also, okay, before we do anything more about the Bears, how on earth in the year 2022 did a team trade a 6th round pick for Adam Shaheen? How is that possible? Adam Shaheen was traded for a pick in 2022? I just had to get that off my chest because I couldn't fucking believe that. Absurd. Anyway, I don't think N'Keal Harry's a lock to make this team. So what does that mean? It means a guy like Daz Newsome or maybe even Nsemba Webster could make this roster. So I'm definitely going to be looking out for Daz Newsome. And something that really surprised me on that depth chart. Again, I don't know how accurate these depth charts are as far as whether they're
very unofficial. They're very unofficial.
Yeah. So if the 53-man roster were to come out today, would it be Thomas Graham Jr. would get cut because he was the last on that depth chart for the cornerback position, right? That's what I just don't know of. But that's a guy that I hope plays, and I hope we get to see is Thomas Graham Jr. So I'm looking out for those 3 guys. I'm looking out for Daz Newsome and Nsemba Webster, and Thomas Graham Jr. And there's a bunch of guys, but those are my top 3. Now that you got a little bit of time, if you have a top 3, let's hear who you're looking out for on Saturday.
Yeah, you mentioned a bunch of guys, so I won't rehash that. We've talked about the offensive line. Honestly, Braxton Jones is one of mine because we hear how awesome he's been, how much work he's been getting with the ones. I want to see it now. I just want to see it. I want my eyeballs to take it in game action and see what all the hype is about. That's it's nothing. I want to see it with my own 2 eyeballs. One that I think is kind of different, Tristan Ebner. We kind of hear about him as this guy who's kind of might be pushing Khalil Herbert for this. He maybe not pushing him, but has risen up and has been getting a lot of reps, looks really good. And we know that the running back position in the NFL, it's turns out like that. So hear good things about him. I'll keep an eye out for him. My top one, and this is kind of a cop-out answer, but it's Matt Eberflus. It's the coaching staff. It's the scheme. It's how this game is coached. Right. It's how, especially on the offensive side, how this game is coached, how the system is run. Obviously, of course, they're not going to lay everything out there on the table. They're not going to show Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, hey, here's the game plan. Here's what we're working with. Here's what we got. Here's what we're going to do. Of course, they're not going to do that. But just show me God, for the love of God, please show me play action. That's it. Please show me some run pass options. Show me some play action. Show me just some diversity. Please, God. That's all I'm asking for. But the coaching staff, that's something that we're going to have to watch because we've never seen the system. We've never seen how they're going to run defense and offense, both of them. That is something that I think for sure is at the top of most people's.
Oh, Jake went out. Yeah, I think he's right, though. That they're at the top of most people's list. I'm going to have to text him and tell him he got kicked out of here. But the coaching staff is definitely there. He's back. You're back.
Right. I'm back. But I think that's what everyone's saying. Everybody wants to see how this system is going to be run. And that's just how, I think everybody's going to. Secondarily, whatever. I want to see Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon, especially Kyler Gordon, because we haven't heard that much. If he plays, he might have some kind of injury stuff going on. But Jaquan Brisker's out here saying, I want to get a turnover. First preseason game? Yeah, I want to get a turnover. Absolutely love that. So, yeah, that's one thing I want to see. I also want to see these bots leave our chat because it's really annoying.
This has never happened, actually. The porn bots are alive and well in the Bears Nation podcast.
Yeah, you get off dating apps finally, and now all the bots come to the chat. Go figure. But yeah, so those are my ones. Those are the ones. The coaching staff far and away. A little bit of Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon. Kevin really liked that one. Tristan Ebner, and of course the offensive line and Braxton Jones.
Oh God, I like what you said about the coaches. And look, it's a preseason game, right? We can't look at it and make complete judgments about everyone, including the coaching staff. But here's what I want to see. Look, what I saw on Tuesday at Family Fest was they were doing a lot of no huddle hurry up stuff, which I really, really liked. Like, boom, completed pass, and they were working on getting back to the line of scrimmage
Great.
and getting the ball
Perfect.
back to the ref, because everyone knows what happened against or with Dallas in the playoffs when who was it? Who was the player that didn't give the ball to the ref? They set it down and then they couldn't get the final playoff in time. Oh, who was it? Was it Gallup? I don't remember who it was, but they don't want.
I think you're right. I think it was Michael Gallup.
Might have been Gallup, yeah. No, I don't think it was, because I remember it being like a boneheaded player, and I was like, that guy's a fucking bonehead. But maybe it was Gallup. I don't know. What I want to see is, I know it's preseason. Come out the gates firing, man. Oh my God! Show up first snap, boom, we're going.
I think they're gonna. I mean,
boom,
everything that Matt Eberflus has said, like that's his whole thing. Yeah, easy shoulders. Good Lord. I mean, everything that he said is like that's going to be their identity. So I completely think that's what's going to happen.
It should be, and like again, yeah, it's just preseason. Yeah, but like I don't care if it's Gallup was injured. It wasn't Gallup.
Oh yeah, he tore his ACL.
If you could figure it out for me, let me know. Nika Skokin in the chat. He's gonna figure it out. I don't care if it's third stringers, second stringers, or the first team guys. Like, what you're preaching and this culture that you're bringing in applies to everyone. So I don't care if it's the fourth quarter.
Well, especially because you got guys fighting for roster spots. Daz Newsome, exactly. Thomas Graham, Dante Pettis, Tajay Sharp. Like these guys are trying to hang on to the roster.
That's a great point, because all those guys like are playing extra hard, because even if you do make the roster, that's the only Claypool was the one. Claypool did it. Right. Claypool did it for Pittsburgh. That's right. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Did Dallas do it?
There was something weird. I think with Dallas, it was just the ref. It was just the ref himself.
Right. The ref. The ref was in the way. But
you're right. Claypool.
Thanks, Alova, in the chat. Where was I? Yeah, like in the preseason, like those guys are always going to bust their ass, because even if you do make, like if you're the last guy to make the roster, like you're not playing. Like you're probably not going to play. So like this is their only game action. They're going to bust their ass because they want to play football, and this is the only time
they're trying to secure a job.
So, yeah, you're going to see that energy, but like I want to see that fire all game. I want to see intensity. I want to see hustle. That's what applies to all those guys. And I want to see this new culture in effect, right? You talk about having urgency and hustle in practice, and how, what you're doing in practice, because the whole belief, like they're not just trying to get these guys injured. They're not just trying to like make these guys hurt in practice. Like there is a reasoning behind the approach that Matt Eberflus has to his practices. And the reasoning is that carries on to the games, that we're well conditioned for the games, but that also we're going to have that same high energy, high intensity, the way we do in practice, the way we do in a game. Like that's exactly why they're doing those things. So I want to see that from the jump. I want to see it the entire game. And I want to see, Matt Eberflus into it, getting these guys ready to play. And look, like sometimes I do feel starters play like they kind of low and they take it easy. And look, I'm injured, but I want to see that same energy from them that we know we're going to see from the third string guys who might not be able to play football this year, aside from the one preseason game, right? I want to see these guys from the jump, the starters, get going, play good football. Anything else you expect? I know we should wrap soon here. Anything else you expect from Saturday's game that the fans and that people should be looking out for?
I'm trying to go with no expectations. I'm trying to let them give me notes, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to go in blank slate, open mind, and then I'm trying to come away with thoughts that they give me with the play on the field for the most part.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm trying to think of some other guys that I liked, I want to look out for. I think on the defensive side of the ball, some DBs. I think Kindle Vildor is a guy who has actually looked okay in practice. Actually, DB Lamar Jackson has looked okay too, from what I thought. Not quarterback Lamar Jackson, DB Lamar Jackson. So those secondary guys, because they're all like Duke Shelley and Kindle Vildor and Thomas Graham, like those guys are really battling it out, because not all of them are going to make the roster, because we believe Tavon Young is probably a lock to make the roster. You signed him in free agency. He's looked pretty good, right? And then Kindle Vildor, Duke Shelley, Thomas Graham, like one of the three, if not two of the three, are probably not going to make the team. Let's say one of the three. And if I had to guess, like Duke Shelley's probably the odd man out of that group. But again, in that depth chart, Thomas Graham Jr. was ranked last. So I'm really curious to see, what the secondary does there. So yeah, and Travis Gibson, I think, is a guy to watch. We don't know how much he's going to play, but he's certainly not the starting edge rusher right now. It's going to be Kadane Muhammad and Robert Quinn, and Travis Gibson will be in after that. But at practice, he had a Stormbreaker in his hand when he came out, and he held it the entire time.
Love it.
I don't know what it means, but maybe if he gets a sack, like We're going to see a little celebration. So I kind of want to see that. That's what I want to see on Saturday. And I want to see Cairo Santos nail field goals because that guy's fucking good. That guy can nail field goals. He's got to be a top 3 player on the team, right? I mean,
God, that's where we're at. The kicker is one of them.
Relax. Justin Tucker's the best player on the Ravens, and they don't have a problem. So, it's not a bad thing if your kicker's really good.
Sure. Yes. Consistency is helpful. We do. Yeah. We appreciate the year 3 of the Cairo Santos experience. We appreciate the consistency. All right. Well, that wraps this episode. We will be back next week to break down this preseason game, talk about everything we see, talk about the snap counts, talk about the little hints of the system that we get to see, talk about the highlights. Hopefully there will be some. Talk about the lowlights. Surely there will be some. And break down some of these guys that we talked about that we want to watch. So thank you guys, as always, for coming through in the chat, for watching live, for listening in podcast form. We appreciate you. You guys rock. We will be back next week. Kevin has one more thing he's telling me.
Are you betting on this game?
No, God, no. There's why am I going to bet preseason football when there's baseball on?
Okay, there's baseball on.
There's legit actual high level starters, people who are actually the games matter.
That's going to deter me from betting football. No, it's not.
Preseason football, yeah.
Look, I would never bet a money line or a spread in preseason football, but I would bet props. I'll bet some props. Why not? I just want to ask you. You're the betting guru of the podcast.
Best of luck to you. Best of luck to you with that.
When I come back after I hit a 24-leg parlay all on Bears props, and I've got $1 million in cash in my hand,
you keep doing those parlays, buddy. You keep doing those.
It's gonna hit one day. It's gonna hit one day,
and you'll finally be at even for all the money you sank into all the other ones. All right, that wraps this episode of Bears Nation Podcast. Catch us back next week to break down that preseason game and break down everything we saw, and of course the continued breakdowns of what we see in practice and how the system comes together, how the roster comes together, and the more we learn, of course, we'll be here to talk about it with you guys. So until next time, thank you all for watching, listening. We'll see you next week, and as always, bear down.